NJ.com and the Heldridge Hotel. Welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights. With your host, Steve Politi, and Rutgers insider Brian Fonseca. Let's start shopping.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Rant. Snowy day here in New Jersey. Wow. How about that, huh? Put the dog out in the backyard. Dog disappeared. Crazy. How's it down by you? You're closer to the campus than I am. What's the situation down in Central Jersey?
It's pretty high. I haven't taken out my ruler and measured how many inches it is, but much like you, our dog is shorter than the amount of snow. And it's a bad look for me because I was telling my friends yesterday, there is no way this storm is going to be worse than the first one. Yeah. There is no way this is going to be worse than 1996. There's just no way. And clearly there was a way.
So you're bad at predicting snow, too, is what you're telling the listeners. It's not just football games. It's snow, weather.
What I would say is when and if I open up a Poly Market account, do not follow fade my bets. Whatever I bet the opposite, and you will make a lot of money.
Fair enough. Keep that in mind. All right, let's dive in. Got some snow day programming for you. Not a lot to talk about. We're going to have Jeff Kleinbaum on, though. He wrote the book about Unforgettable Nights, the 1976 story of the undefeated Final Four team. Read the book. Great stuff. Looking forward to talking to Jeff about a lot of stuff in there that I did not know. And it's funny because you think you know everything about that team, but you did not. So I wonder if Jeff learned a little bit about his own team, when he was writing the book. So we'll talk to him about that. But we've got the current team to talk about. Both basketball teams. We're going to dive in. I guess there was some optimism, Brian, when you saw the men come back. They beat Penn State pretty handily, double digits. Go to Minneapolis, go to Minnesota. Just a reminder that this team, if you thought it was turning the corner, you thought it was getting better, well, yeah, here's your 2x4 in the face.
Yes, it's understandable that people want to find whatever shred of optimism, whatever silver lining there is in this season. So when they win back-to-back games against fellow, basement dwellers, Penn State and Maryland, you think, okay, maybe they found something. Maybe the freshmen are developing. Maybe it just took a little longer than we wanted, but Rutgers is playing up to its potential. And then they played a team with a pulse in Minneapolis, a team with, by the way, down 3 starters, a team that played essentially 5 guys. They had one guy, a 6th man, play 13 minutes, but otherwise 5 guys played 35 minutes each. And they just rained it in from 3. And you can maybe excuse that as Minnesota just had a hot day from 3. That's what happened. I think Minnesota just dominated Rutgers from start to finish, moved the ball exquisitely. They number 1 in the country in assist rate, and they looked like it, just getting open look after open look. Rutgers on the other end struggling mightily to create anything offensively. And I think the score was actually kind of kind because I think Minnesota dominated Rutgers much more than whatever it was. It's 19-point result or something like that. It could have been 30 if Minnesota really wanted to.
Yeah, and it's another one of these games. It reminded me a little bit of the Nebraska game where you have a team that, I don't know, on paper certainly didn't look that much more talented. Missing 3 of its best players, so they're down a few men, and they get out there and they just have a plan. They have a system. They know what they want to do offensively. They're kind of fun to watch. They're not a great team. But just got a lot of open looks, open shots, move the ball around. There's an offensive flow. There's a system. Again, we talk about this all the time in relation to Rutgers. And then, on the other end of it, Tariq Francis doesn't have a great game, doesn't get in the flow. Forget it. There's just no chance with Rutgers. That's kind of the way I looked at it. Like, you're at the point now where if that kid isn't quite on his, on his best game, there's no hope.
Yes, the hope would be that it's one of the rare games where someone else has a really good game,
has that happened?
Sometimes the stars align. At Penn State, Lino Mark had a good game. Herman Zerno had a good game. Dylan Grant had a sneaky, efficient game. And Tariq Francis had a decent game. So that also coincided with playing maybe the worst defense in the Big Ten. And,
right.
So again, it does say something that they have all their best performances when they play bad teams and then they play a team with a pulse and things kind of go away. None of this is a surprise. But I just think that it was jarring to some people how they played better against Maryland and Penn State. They looked competent, and then they get blasted by Minnesota. The contrast is I think the
right. Yeah, and there's always like you can find a silver lining. And I will say it is a good one. Lino Mark did play really well. It was his turn to be the good guy off the bench. 16 points in 23 minutes, 6 of 7, 3 for 3 from 3-point range. Obviously, that's been the big question mark with him. Can he hit the outside shots? So you like what he could do? 0 turnovers, 3 assists. Okay, that's a positive. I don't know. Are you moving him? Are you moving him down to the keep ledger side of the ledger? I mean, what last game we moved Harren Zerno over there, and now he had a kind of it wasn't a bad performance, it wasn't a great one. I mean, what do you think? Is Lino Mark now a guy that you have to look at as someone you're bringing back to this team's bench?
I think I'm putting an embargo. That's not the right word, but I'm putting a halt to all discussions about what side of the fence every player is on until the season is over. Because I'm losing myself.
What else are we going to talk about? You can't put a halt on that. You want to talk about the snow? It's snowing out.
I just can't. I can't do this. I can't go flip. Snip, snap, snip, snap. I feel like Michael Scott in The Office. I can't do it anymore. I think I'm pretty steadfast in Tariq Francis for the right price and roll, Darren Buchanan for the right price and roll. One or two of the freshmen, whether that's Harun Zerno, Lino Mark, for the right price and roll. And I think if this team flipped over 100%, the entire roster, I also think that would be much of a disaster. So, no, I will say it's worth mentioning the Seton Hall model that we had been touting, or I had been touting personally a lot earlier in the season. That's kind of imploded.
Yep, it certainly has. Yep.
Listen, I think Rutgers would love to be in the position Seton Hall is in now, where they're still in theory competing for a Big Ten or an NCAA tournament bid, but the shoe-in I thought they were in December. Yeah. They really had a bad week last week, and that's kind of fallen apart. So I take back some of my Seton Hall praise. I do stand though that it is a good model of like, okay, if you're in this position right now, blowing it up and starting all over is not the worst idea in the world.
Right. Yes. I thought they had figured it out. Clearly they have not. Although certainly they're in far better shape than Rutgers is. I don't know what to make. It's just, again, this is a loss to a team that's, not in the top 10 in the Big Ten, not in even barely in the middle tier of the Big Ten, another bottom team in the Big Ten. And it just shows how far this team's got to go. I think you're absolutely right. Just not a lot of encouraging signs. Kind of running out of ways to say it, I mean, it's just, you can't for me, you just can't turn the page fast enough on the season. It's kind of how I feel about it.
I agree. There's still stuff to play for. They're still in position for the 14th spot and the last bye in the Big Ten tournament. All right. They're at 58% right now.
Is that what it is? Who's keeping track of this? Is there someone actually doing this? 58%?
J. Thomas Analytics has a great site that has all this stuff. It changes every day, obviously.
Okay.
And there's another one that I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll put it in the Discord where you can toggle the result of every single game. So if this game goes this way and this game goes this way, like who would stand in the Big Ten standings? It's very fun to do for a snow day.
Yeah, I guess so. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So anyway, there are 4 games left. 3 of them are winnable. So we'll ignore the Michigan State game. Washington at home, Maryland on the road, Penn State at home.
Okay.
Let's do this exercise one more time. Over under 1.5 wins.
Under. Yep, I'm going under.
Do they get to 1?
They'll get to 1. Absolutely, they'll get one of them, but I don't think they're going to get 2. Yeah,
what is the one?
Just the vibe I've got. I just don't. I don't know. I just think that they'll beat Penn State. Maryland will catch them. Maryland looks like they're the 3 teams directly below them. I noticed they're on 1-game winning streaks. Whew, things are getting hot down there at the bottom of the Big Ten. I just don't. I don't know. I got a feeling that we're heading to Tuesday. I
don't know. That's kind of what's exciting about this. Exciting and
that's
very big quotation marks.
Yeah.
There's still some mystery here. I think there's I would if I had to guess right now, if I had to put all my chips in, this is probably a bad sign for Rutgers. I would put my chips in on Rutgers getting the bye. I really think that's going to happen. Man. In combination of Rutgers, I think it'll go over. I think they'll win 2 of these games. I think they'll beat Washington, and I think they'll beat Penn State. But that, along with the fact the rest of the Big Ten is very stinky, the bottom of the Big Ten. So does it really matter? No. But like you said, we really don't have much to talk about here. So trying to, find what we can.
You want to shift? Do you want to shift to the women's team? Other things we don't have to talk about because it was a snowy day. I watched both games. I watched the women's game start to finish. That tells you what I had a little minor knee surgery, had nothing to do, hopped up on Percocet. I had the game on. So, so there's reasons why I was watching it, but I watched almost the entire game. Man, there's not a lot there. That's the best I can tell you there. Lost to a bad Penn State team. The player you let go, and I understand why Kim McMillan left the program. I understand why they could have held the door open for her to go, but there she goes, scores 30 points again. Rutgers didn't replace her. It's just not a lot of talent on that team, not a lot of anything on that team. And I think you're looking at it now, under Coquise Washington, Scarlet Knights are 11-59 in the Big Ten, right? They're 1-15 this year, 6-46 in the last 3 years in the Big Ten. I mean, this is coming to an end. I just don't see any other way that, Rutgers can go, into another year with her as head coach and be taken seriously. Like, I think there's just some changes you have to make. And this is just one of them. I don't think this is much of a debate. I don't think, I don't think she could stand up and say, well, wait a minute, look what I've accomplished. Yeah. I don't think there's really any case to be made otherwise, except, and even the money, right? We talked about it. There's, what was it? 1.6 million left in her contract. I mean,
1.675.
Yeah. Do you want to be taken seriously, or do your Big Ten program? I think that's a sunk cost. You didn't hire her. Been a bad fit from the start. The program's going nowhere. There's no like, you're not looking at it thinking, oh, but wait. There are a couple guys out that could be okay next year. There's nothing there.
Yes. Even if Kelly Zinn and the new administration wanted to apply the same things they did for, football or men's basketball, or, give them another year, see what they could do with, rejuvenated NIL, with a GM in place, all that stuff. There's just not enough there to justify doing that, right? Steve Peichel, at the very least, had his successful years, and Coquise Washington just has nothing. She just, understandably, she took over a program that was on a decline, that had, their Hall of Fame coach had kind of left them hanging. They had a disaster year the year before her. Understand that she had a big hole to climb out of, but I mean, it arguably has gotten worse. And understanding that they had almost no NIL to work with as well, they still arguably gotten worse. Her record, again, in 3 years as of right now, is 42-82, 11-59 in the Big Ten. And to reiterate, another difference between this program and the others that we've compared them to, her buyout is very, very manageable. You can pay that, and you probably lose more money having her around and not paying that $1.6 million than if you pay that $1.6 million. You spend a lot more money on a new coach, because I think if you do fire Coquise and you hire a new coach, you got to go big, right? This is a program that with a higher ceiling than most. I think you can. I don't know if you can make money. You can certainly lose less money than they've been losing. Mm-hmm. You can get much more butts in the seats. There are just no butts in the seats. There's nobody in the stands.
What is it? 800 season ticket holders at this point? I mean, it's how far it's fallen. It's kind of sad.
I can get the number for you exactly. I think it's a little under that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yes, like you can go from 600 season ticket holders to maybe 6,000. If it gets back to the peak of what it was. I'm not saying that's going to happen anytime soon, but my point being, this program has been underperforming for quite some time here. And sorry, I'm searching as I speak to you, but I do think it's important to get the numbers. But anyway, do you agree with the point that if they do make a move here, the replacement has to be a home run, or at least the attempt of a home run?
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, there's a limitation to how much you're going to willing to spend on that salary. Like, I don't think you're going to, you're not having Kim Mulkey. You're not getting a Hall of Fame coach. You're not doing what Rutgers did with C. Vivian Stringer. Certainly that was that was the big hire that kind of took that program and kept it there at the top of women's college basketball for years when she was in her prime. Hired her out of Iowa. She was already an established name. I don't know that you're getting someone like that to come here, but yeah, I think you want someone who's got a name in the game, someone who's, a higher level coach. And to me, it's a very fascinating hire for Kelly Zinn. I think we're going to learn a lot about her, like what she thinks, how she operates. how she views this program specifically, but also, just her philosophy with making hires. Is she going to try to catch someone on the way up? Is she going to try to get someone who's at a mid-major program who's doing really well? Or is she going to try to bring in a name? Is she going to try to capitalize on, I don't know, her connections at LSU? Certainly that program's got a large tree of former star players you could hire. I mean, there's a lot of directions you can go, and it's sort of a fascinating hire. And then this is like a block of clay for her, right? It's rock bottom. There is opportunity there to make some money, to bring in some, I don't know, anything, some juice. Certainly it's got to be better than it is now, losing the amount of money it's losing, I'm sure, based on where it was. And you're right. And I do want to drive this point home, because you're right. Coach Washington took it over under awful circumstances. We've got to remember where it came from. See if Amy Stringer stepped aside like literally days after signing a 5-year contract. The program had an interim coach for a year. There was no talent. There's nobody in the roster at all, right? That's enough for your first year. Like you get a pass from me for your first year, maybe even your second year. Yeah, now you're in year 4. It's still, nothing's changed. It's still the same. If anything, it's worse than it was last year. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's clear that this is where this is headed, and I'd be very surprised if we're not talking about a new coach in the next podcast.
Next week, right? Because the last game of the season, because I think they're mathematically eliminated, and if they're not, there will be soon from the Big Ten tournament, because the women's side of the Big Ten held strong in the correct way to do this, in that you have to qualify for the Big Ten tournament. Much respect for the women's doing that, unlike the men who, they give out a participation trophy for everyone. Anyway, so they will be eliminated, and the last game would be Saturday, the 28th. I agree with you that this is a litmus test for Kelly Zinn in 2 ways, right? Like, I think it's obvious that you have to fire and start new in this program, right? I think, first of all, she has to do that, right? We think she will, right? We're pretty confident that will happen, but she has to do it, right? That's a test if she can do that in her first year in the position, and then what kind of hire she's going to make. You could pursue all those avenues you said, but it's a matter of what is she going to be able to do? Like, who is the person that ultimately takes over the seat? And I got the numbers for you just to wrap up this point. So in 22-23, which was Coquise's first year, they sold 364. And these might be these are season tickets sold. 22-23, they sold 364. 23-24, 448. 24-25, 859. And 25-26 this current year, 767.
Wow.
So they had a spike, and then they calmed down. And just for comparison, the men, which again is not a fair comparison. This is not exactly where they should aspire to, but the men in 24-25, 5,600. In 25-26 this year, 4,964.
Yeah, you're not selling 5,000 season tickets for the women, but there's no reason you're not doubling that number. You could be close to 2,000. You could be
2,500. Yeah,
I don't know. Even
it's the Big Ten, and
right.
This is never going to be Iowa, right? This is never going to be UCLA, or at least not in the near future. But there are exciting teams in this conference. This is a growing sport, right? There is interest in this sport,
right?
And Rutgers, in the current era of the sport being popular, which is another thing that's fascinating. William Tate and Kelly Zinn were at a school that won a national championship in the sport. They understand the power of the sport. Bill Tate is all in on women's basketball. He loves the sport.
Absolutely.
So I think that's another telling thing, like how much of an impact he'll have, because I think he'll want to make a splash higher in this as well. I also think Kim Mulkey probably is a bridge too far, but just know that will be the first name people throw out there. Can they make the magic happen? I don't think it'll happen. She's never left the South.
I mean, from your lips, make it so, please. I mean, good grief. Can you imagine? Holy cow. That'd be something. That would be something. Again, it's just crazy talk, but we've got nothing else to talk about. So let's talk crazy. Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, I would love to talk to her about it, because the thing that really strikes me about this program is it was the bellwether for Rutgers for decades. Right. I mean, remember this program at its peak was going head to head with Gino Auriemma's UConn and holding its own. I mean, didn't win more than lost, but I mean, there were some of the most epic sporting events I've seen at Rutgers were women's basketball games against that. He hated Rutgers. They got so far in that guy's head. He hated where they played. He didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want to come down here. It was great. It was like a lot of fun. That Final Four team when they went to the national championship it was like a fun thing to cover. I'll never forget like being in Cleveland and seeing the excitement and, you know, Greg Schiano running into the locker room after they won I think they beat LSU in the national semifinals. I'm sure someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it was just, I mean, it was a great moment for probably the highlight, the highest achievement of things that I've covered at Rutgers team wise. You know, again, one win away from against a great Tennessee team from winning a national championship. It was a lot of fun. I don't know if they get back to that level, but they certainly, I mean, from where they are now, it is a shame really how far they've fallen. So
You were correct. It was LSU. I wanted to say it was Duke, but they beat Duke earlier in the tournament.
Yes, that was the big upset where they punched Duke in the face, and Duke was had one loss, some kind of like one of those 34-1 teams that you think that was a paper tiger. Yeah, I remember that. Yep, beat Duke in Greensboro. Now you're bringing it all back to me.
In the Mickey Mouse ACC, they played a real conference like the Big East, baby. I agree that, again, let's take it one step at a time here. This program, it's unlikely in the current climate that it will get back to being, competing for top 10 finishes and Final Fours and the way C. Vivian Stringer had it humming back in the day. There's a lot more competition these days in this sport than there was back in that.
Of course.
Again,
Totally.
It's become a bigger sport. There's a lot more interest. There's a lot more talent out there as far as the sport's gotten bigger among young girls. But there's no reason Rutgers shouldn't compete to be in the middle of the Big Ten. Much like the men's basketball, same aspirations, right?
Yes.
Middle of the Big Ten. Every couple of years, you have a top 4 finish or something, or you're kind of in the mix. And they should make the NCAA tournament regularly. Missing the NCAA tournament should be the anomaly, not making it. I think that's where this program should be.
Yes. And this is a good opportunity for Kelly's to come out and say, look, this is not acceptable. This is below our standards. We're better than this. I mean, it's a message to the fan base. It might not be the highest profile team. It might not be, kind of the grab you moment that obviously she's going to be facing a couple of big decisions with the high profile programs and head coaches if things don't turn around with those in the coming years. But this is her first chance to sort of signify to the fan base that, we're not standing for this. 6-46 ain't good enough. Period. That's it. There's nothing else we have to explain. That's your record in the Big Ten the last 3 years. Sorry. Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see how she approaches that and what she does with it. So we'll be monitoring that closely.
It's a test case. We'll take this as an opportunity to bring this graphic up. Oh, wrong. This StreamYard thing can be very frustrating sometimes. All right. Ooh. So this is, and we got the Rutgers Rant watermark right in the middle. It's exclusive.
Someone wants to steal this.
Yes.
Another
I'm sure
podcast going to steal your information that you. So it's a chart. So explain what it's on the screen in case you're listening to it.
I know people love talking about finances, so I'm worried people are going to steal this. Obviously, we're joking. But anyway, so this is the breakdown of Rutgers sports in the last calendar year, 24-25, how much each of them made in revenue, how much they spent in expenditures, and the deficit. Right. Now, to be clear, before people get up in arms, this does not include media rights money. That is all under non-program specific, which is why there's $106 million in revenue in non-program specific. If we were to allocate them the way if Rutgers were to allocate them the way other Big Ten schools do, which is roughly 85% to football would be, instead of a $48 million deficit, they would probably be around a $3 to $4 million. What's the opposite of a deficit? Profit. Thank you. It's such a foreign concept at Rutgers. I don't even know what the word means. But anyway, why do I bring this up? Well, we're talking about women's basketball. It is the sport that loses the most money outside of the big two, football and men's basketball. They lose $7 million a year. They made in revenue last year $593,000. That's it.
Yeah, that's rough.
That number could double, triple, quintuple. It really could if the right person is hired and there's some buzz in this program. That's just not enough to justify having a program in what is allegedly a revenue sport, right? You got to make that. When Kelly's talks about having a revenue problem instead of an expense problem, this program might be the poster child, because that $600,000 is not enough money over the course of a season when you have 18 home games. It's just not enough.
I mean, rowing makes $237,000. How's that? I love it. What's the revenue there? They're getting revenue from charging people to Stand at the Raritan? That's great. I love it.
That's a great question. It might be. My gut says it's contributions.
It's got to be. I'm sure. Yeah, sure it is. Absolutely. It's just funny. That yeah.
I can't. I have to go do a deep dive here, so I'll have to get back to you on that. But I cannot imagine. Let's see.
I'm sure it is. Don't go down the rabbit hole. It's got to be contributions.
Well, people are going to be curious.
Yeah,
and
I think they'll be okay.
Yeah,
but yeah, to your broader point, yes, opportunity here, obviously, and this is not a program that's going to break even or make money, but certainly it can't be that. It just can't be. You're absolutely right. $6 million in the hole. This is a sunk cost. This is not a coach she hired. Yeah, this just. I think this is an obvious decision where we're headed.
Anything else from that chart stand out to you while we have it up?
No. Softball 49,000, women's track 22,000. Yeah, there's a lot of numbers there. Glad we have the watermark on it.
Yes, there is. Listen, I just want to be safe. That's all. Yeah, nothing else really. Again, the issue is that with football, men's basketball, the numbers are skewed because there are no media rights money in there, and I don't know exactly what the distribution should be. But
right.
I guess the big takeaway for me here is that, again, if you don't allocate the media rights money, no sport makes money. Football makes money. Football is probably the only one in the department that makes money.
Right.
Other than that,
yeah.
No one really makes money.
All right. Want to close the thread on that? Any other final thoughts on women's basketball?
Close the thread on women's basketball. I have a couple of quick hits to do on other sports before we get to Jeff Kleinbaum.
What do you got?
So football, not much movement there over the past week. It's been a week since we recorded. It's possible that I'm forgetting something, but the big thing is Sunday night, Drake hired a head coach to replace Joe Woodley, who came to Rutgers to be the Rush Ends coach, which means that in 5 days, Drake players could enter the portal. The only real player to watch there that could possibly be of interest to Rutgers, Sean Allison, starting linebacker, 6 foot, 235. He'll be a senior. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining. It's a big jump from the FCS to the Big Ten, obviously, particularly at a position like linebacker, but he had a standout year at Drake. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if there's any player, people often ask us, are there any chances of players coming? That's the only guy I would even, monitor, think about. So that's one thing to watch. Baseball, real up and down weekend. I mean, they demolished Virginia Tech on Friday night. They were on the verge of a second win on Saturday night. They had a 3-run lead in the bottom of the 10th. They went to extra innings, and they gave up 3 home runs.
Oof.
And lost the game. And then on Sunday, they lost again. So they went from being on the brink of going 2-0 on the weekend, going into Sunday, and they went 1-2 against Virginia Tech. Rough.
Ouch.
Softball played Team Japan, which is interesting. It had an exhibition with the Japanese national team. Kristen Butler, the coach, played in Japan. She was one of the players to play on the first year of the professional league there. I'm trying to get the score here. I don't know if they won or lost. They there's no score. It doesn't say. It just says they met with Team Japan. I cannot find a score.
Okay.
Well, they played Team Japan. I guess it was a friendly, so they didn't. It was an exhibition. I guess they didn't keep score. And then I think the lacrosses.
Can we start lacrosse? We're back.
Lacrosse season starts earlier and earlier every year.
Yeah.
Men's lacrosse is now 3-1. They beat Villanova 8-7. Villanova beat Penn State, who's a top-ranked team. So that's no joke. It's a big win for Rutgers. They beat Villanova. They had beaten Stony Brook last week, and the week before that, they lost in the bubble. They had to play in the bubble because of a snowstorm, and they lost to Army.
I would like to see how these teams, these outdoor teams, the quote unquote spring sports are practicing and training right now. Like what are these teams doing? Is the crew team going down the Raritan in this upstream red team? Is that happening? Can you imagine what is going on? Chip, send me some photos. Like the tennis doesn't have an indoor structure. These teams don't have indoor facilities.
They do. Tennis plays at there's a place in East Brunswick. I don't know off the top of my head. So they have an outdoor. They have an indoor.
I'm like an old man. I'm a dad. Don't be careful out there. It's cold.
In my memory of Kearney had a pretty big crew scene, had a good crew team. I think they have like they have like indoor. I don't know if it's a shed or whatever, but they have indoor things, and they just run the. I wish I remember what they were called, because that's all they talked about was doing the test or whatever on those
Right.
on those rowing machines. So they have ways to do it. I don't know when rowing starts competing, to be honest with you. Let's check that. When's the first meet so you can show up and attend?
Stay safe out there, guys.
They have a scrimmage on the Raritan March 14th against Temple.
Okay. All right. So still 3 weeks away. We got some time.
Correct. And
get the ice blocks out of the Raritan.
For the other sports, to answer your question, I'm assuming men's lacrosse and women's lacrosse practice at the bubble.
Yeah.
Baseball has its indoor facility across from the rack, and I'm assuming softball uses that facility as well.
Do we know the bubble's still standing? I mean, get some snow, heavy snow in the bubble. It kind of worries me too. These are the things I worry about now. I'm an old man. Snow in the bubble.
I am legally not allowed to drive over and check, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I would assume that I'm assuming it's still standing because we haven't seen anything. But if the bubble falls and no one's around to hear it, did it really fall?
It pops. All right. Before we lose all of our listeners, before we have our guest on, let's take a break here. We'll be back in a minute to talk about the 1976 men's basketball team with Jeff Kleinbaum, author of a book, Unforgettable Nights. All right, we are back with Jeff Kleinbaum, author of Unforgettable Nights, story of the 1976 basketball team. Front row seats that you had for that team, a member of that team, part of it. Jeff, thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate you coming onto the pod.
Oh, I appreciate it too, Steve and Brian. I like this show a lot, and I was really looking forward to coming on. So I'm excited.
Great. Well, let's dive into the book. And I'm curious. I read it, a lot of great stuff. And I was saying before you got on here, just a lot of stuff I didn't know. And I thought at this point that I'd known everything you could possibly know about that team. I'm curious from your standpoint, when you set out to do this, you started talking to your former teammates, was there anything you learned yourself about this team that you didn't know?
Well, I did. That's a really good question. I thought I knew everything. I thought we were pretty close. But the first thing is that everybody was very excited about the book, and I really didn't expect that. I thought guys were going to say, "Who's going to listen? Come on, this is enough." But and you're a first-time author, but they really jumped on board. Eddie Jordan said, "This is going to be our legacy. You got to do this," which was really important. And Mike Dabney was all over it. And that was good. But one of the things that happened from the book was that we all connected again. I called every guy, and then I put together a group of guys together, and they were all involved in one way or another with the book. And what it did was it made them go back in their what they were looking at from things all the way back in there. Steve Heffley told me, I don't know what I'm going to remember way back then. And then he went and started looking at things, and they would be calling me and saying, "Hey, did you know this?" They would tell me stories I didn't know. I didn't know a story about some of the guys playing cards, and it got a little out of hand, and which I didn't know about. And Eddie Jordan told me a couple of stories. Most I could put on, but maybe one or two I couldn't put it in the book, and I think he was thankful about that. But what I learned was we really are a close group of guys. Something I don't think we'll ever see again in college basketball, because nobody's there long enough to develop the bonds.
You were back on campus recently for the letter winners game. I think it was last weekend. A lot of guys back from that team and other teams. Just what's that like to be back with all those guys? And I guess just generally, it's been 50 years since that team. Just what's it been like to reminisce on those memories? As long as it's been since then.
A couple of things really. First of all, it was great. It was great to be back there. It was great to see mostly the guys not from the team, because I see Palco and Bruce Shear, and I've gone to several games this year. In fact, Tuesday I'm going with Bruce Shear. And I see them, Mike Dabney and I go back a long way, and before college. And so I see the guys. What I didn't see were the guys from other teams and how they treated us. I just thought that we were just another team of some of the great teams. And one guy, I don't want to say it because I don't know, I should say it or not. Mike McDonald, you know Mike. Mike McDonald, when they were lining us up, they had us in the front, the 76 team, all together at first. And Mike McDonald said, "Oh, you guys are here. Rutgers royalty is here." And then a couple of guys, when we were meeting earlier from other teams, Bob Grecian, who was from the 60s, said, "Guys, you guys put this program on the map and we'll never forget it." And I just didn't realize the extent of that. I thought some of the guys from other teams would be a little upset because they do kind of overdo it with our team versus other teams. You know, they seem to have an anniversary with us every hour or so. And, you know, some of the other teams don't seem to get it. I think they get shortchanged a little bit, but they didn't feel that way as far as I knew. They were very respectful, and a lot of people guys came to me with their copy of the book and asked for my signature. And my signature? You played. I hardly played. So it was a great, great day at Rutgers.
Jeff, aside from the obvious, right, 26-0, Final Four, why do you think this team has held this space in the Rutgers? It's just such an important place in its history, its lore. Why do you think it has had that staying power?
You know, look at, if you go to Duke, I guess, every other team is a Final Four team. UCLA, places like that. We only had one.
Right.
And that time, it was a combination of things going on at that time. The Northeast was struggling to become part of the big boys. You know, if I remember right, Fordham had a great team a few years earlier with Digger Phelps as their coach, and Princeton's team in the 60s with Bill Bradley and their classic matchups with Michigan State and Cassie Russell, that could put Jersey on the map a little bit. But when we came along, we kind of invaded what was usually more rarefied air for other teams. We got into the top 20, and I don't think the people wanted to keep us from the rest of the country. Like if we had a tighter than expected game, we dropped a spot in the top 20, or two. They were anxious to not give us our due up to the top 10 or up to the top 5. And then when we did, I think what happened was people who were there, they remembered it forever. I go places to this day, and people will say, "You played on that team." My wife and I went to a restaurant in Madison, New Jersey, and I had to make reservations, so I put it under my name. And as soon as I walked in, the owner, who was an older gentleman like myself, said to me, "Excuse me, you played on that team." And, I think it had the staying power because it was so unique at the time. It really caught everyone's attention. I don't remember a lot of things, and I'm getting older and I seem to be forgetting more and more, but I know where I was, not just for every game, but some of the practices.
Yeah.
And I think that it did that for a lot of people, a lot of fans. In the book, I have fans' reaction, a chapter on the fans' take. And this one woman, Anne-Marie Gorda, wrote me that she was a 9-year-old girl then. And to this day, it was one of the highlights of her life, that just staying after the games, and everybody was interested in us. And it was just so unique. And I think it had staying power for many years, like big events do, a lot bigger than that, politically and socially. But I think it did in our neck of the woods. And it does have staying power, which is one of the reasons I wrote the book, because people would ask me, how do I get a book on you guys? And I'd say, well, there's nothing. So
you solved the problem yourself.
Yeah, I said, let me get there. Let me do this. So that's my answer to that, the best I can.
Did you have a sense then that would be possible, that 50 years later we'd still be talking about that team, especially the way we do?
Not while it was happening. While it was happening, I didn't know that it was much different than any other good team going through a season. But then when we got up to like 18 or 20, people were really, really following us. And I was getting letters, and all the players were. And people were rooting for us to do it. And but after it was over, you don't have time to think after it's over, and you're waiting for yourself to settle down in your life. I was a senior, so I had to move on. The guys who were staying had another season to play, and they didn't think of it. So I just didn't. I did think about it a little bit, and I waited for everything to settle down, and it just never did for a while. And then when Rutgers started, as I said earlier, inviting us so many times, you started to get a sense that this has staying power. I never imagined 50 years. I didn't even imagine if I'd be around in 50 years. But and we have a thing that says we call it last man standing on our team. The last guy still alive is going to go to the barn, because it's there, sit down and have a Michelob, because that was Tom Young's drink. So the last guy there. So I really hope to see you guys then.
Oh, yeah. Let us know.
We'll be
Keep
there.
us posted.
We'll be there. Have you been to the barn? I go to the barn a decent amount these days. Have you been to the barn, and what's it like walking back into that place? Because I wasn't around for the 76 season. I walk in there, I look around, and I'm like, how did this tiny place fit all those people, the paint chips and all that stuff you hear about? Like, when you walk back into the barn these days, or the last time you were there, what goes through your mind? What do you feel?
Well, I get there. Anytime I go to New Brunswick, I go to the barn. Nice bar. That was good. I go to Old Queens too, but I go to the barn because it'll never stop being our home and my history. And so I always stop by the barn. And when you go in, the memories come flooding in. It is small and it's so unique. I don't know how to describe it. The out of bounds, you always had to ask people, could you just move your feet back a little bit so I could get in there to take the ball out? And people were there from early in the morning of the day of the game, any game. And the line would be from where the barn is, and about a half a block away is the student center. And the line would be there by like 11 o'clock in the morning. So it brings back those memories, but it's so unique, the barn, that it just brings back incredible memories for me.
Jeff, obviously no team plays in a vacuum. And I think what's fascinating about your book, talking about that time on the Rutgers campus and some of the racial strife, some of the politics is going on, the black students fighting for equal rights on the campus. And it trickled over to the basketball team, and there was some concern in the crowds about all black starting five. I didn't realize any of that was going on. Just curious, when you were revisiting it, what struck you about that part of it, and what the team was overcoming that maybe people didn't see?
Well, we got a sense of it 2 years earlier which was my sophomore year, 2 years before the Final Four. Well, before I say that, it was a time of civil rights. It was a movement in the late 60s, early 70s. The Vietnam War was still going on. Um, there were a lot of deaths of famous people like Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X. And there was a lot going on in our country, and we weren't immune to it. And Rutgers, really was, as a university, the students took part in a lot of the protests before the basketball thing. So it was in the air. At Rutgers, where it was everywhere else. In '68, Columbia University closed down because the students took over the administration buildings. And that was only like 8 years earlier.
Yeah.
So it was there. And then my sophomore years, we were playing Pittsburgh at a home game. And a little more than midway through the first half, students walked right on they more than walked, they flooded the court during the game, not during a timeout, while the game action was going, and they staged the protest. It was mostly black students, but there were white students as well who who supported the causes. And we ended up having to forfeit that game. And then, so my senior year, it was there. But I thought people didn't take it in anymore. But when I noticed, not to the extent that I did later, when we started the season, Mike Palco was the starting center, and the other four guys it was Mike Dabney, Phil Sellers, Eddie Jordan, and Hollis Copeland, and Mike Palco, who was white. And the people would sometimes cheer for Bailey while he was on the bench, and he was a freshman. I was wondering how they even knew Bailey yet, because he hadn't played yet. How are they doing this? And then it kind of struck all of us. And Palco took it to heart a little bit, as anybody would. And what happened was we all jumped in to support him. Mark Conlon was big with that, supporting him. Mike Dabney was big to go to Palco and say, "Don't worry about it. It won't affect us." And then after the fifth game, Tom Young made the decision to take Mike out, not because he was succumbing to the pressure, but because James Bailey deserved to be in there. 4 years later, he's going to be the 6th overall pick in the NBA draft. He was that good. But as a freshman, he was a great, young, skinny, talented guy, similar to Ace Bailey in body type, but a completely different game. And when he came on, then the white students were chanting to an extent, not crazy. And then we had to go to Bailey, and what that happened, it made our team that much closer. We defended each other. We supported each other. We wouldn't leave anybody alone if we thought there'd be some kind of an event. And I think it was one of the things that made us so close to this day.
The Michelob Ultra story with Tom Young, the last man standing, was excellent. I'm wondering if you have any other things like that, off the top of your mind, because I love stuff like that when, close-knit groups have these rituals or things like that. Anything else come to mind that, in that vein?
Well, I will tell you, we meet up all the time, more so than officially. The only one that brings us back more is ourselves than Rutgers, because they bring us back. I think I have a reunion this afternoon, which they would keep on. But we had some of the stories, we were not a crazy team, but I think I told this in the book, but we were not huge drinkers or anything, even though the drinking age in New Jersey, it was 21, and then turned to 18 later. But we were in a game, we were after a game one game. I don't remember what game. It was Tom Young's first year as our coach, and we played a game in Madison Square Garden, and we were leaving the garden, and we were in the bus, and we were going home. We were all tired. All of a sudden, the bus stops, and a couple of guys said, "Did something happen to the bus?" We were talking because it was there for a while. I said no, and then a couple of minutes later, Joe Boylan, who had left the bus, I said maybe he got sick or something. He comes in with a little cooler of beer. And I said, "Are they going to drink?" He said, "Oh," and Tom Young got some. He said, "No, we're going to drink, but so are you." And he gives out, we're the players, remember. He gives out 2 beers to everyone. He says, "Guys, 2 beers never hurt anybody." And he gave us 2 beers, and we each, some guys didn't drink it. And I will tell you that got extended a little bit, because about 5 games later, Eddie Jordan got caught with Jack Daniels in the bus.
Oh boy!
Young said, "What the heck are you doing?" And he said, "1 Jack Daniels will never hurt anyone, coach."
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. So it was a great story, I think. And I think I told some of it. I don't think I told the Jack Daniels part.
All right. So I'm going to put you on the spot, because I think it's fruitless to try to compare eras of sports. We do it all the time. I mean, trying to compare the 1927 Yankees to the 2000 Yankees, all that stuff is crazy. But I am curious, because I'm guessing you have a strong opinion about this. How would this team do in the Big Ten right now? If you
I
throw it
will
out there
tell you exactly how we do. And I have, not only that, I have proof. I have support on it. And read my book again, and you'll see, I think you already know, I claim that our team in the 70s would not only compete with Rutgers today. I want to make it a little stronger than that. I think we would be competing for in the Big Ten as one of the most powerful teams in the Big Ten, and we would be a very strong contender to be in the NCAAs. I think we'd be there, and I'll tell you why. I know you want to look at us and say, you look at guys and say, look at those short, all due respect, Steve, bald or white-haired guys. How could, that's what the people today see. But go back in time. You have Phil Sellers, a first-team All-American. You have James Bailey, who only 3 years later will be the 6th overall pick in the NBA draft. Mike Dabney and Eddie Jordan were arguably the best backcourt in the country. And Hollis Copeland, just 2 years later, would be going to the NBA and playing for the Knicks and others. So that was our starting team. And then we also, quickness doesn't fade. We were super quick, present company excluded, because I was not that quick, but they were, and they were extremely quick. And I think it shows. But I thought about that. I wrote in the book that we would compete. In fact, I said that if you took James Bailey and put him on the team where Rutgers had Harper and Bailey, Ace Bailey, I think that alone, because of James Bailey, would improve their chances dramatically last year. But I didn't want to take it. I said, look, I'm a little bit biased. So I asked first Dick Vitale. The reason I asked him was because he's around today watching these teams and dealing with these teams. He's doing the games. So he sees today's market. And he claims that we could have played absolutely be one of the great teams because of our quickness and our defense. Then I asked Bill Raftery, another commentator today, and I asked him what he felt, and he said, absolutely. You had the big guy in the middle, and you had super guards who were as quick as anybody today. And of course, I asked Eddie Jordan, because besides playing for us, he was also an NBA coach, as you know, coached us, coached 3 NBA teams and played in the NBA years. He said there would be no question. He says, Jeff, you guys, we were so quick that we could play with anyone. So I really believe that, I don't ever think we would go undefeated, because I don't think if we played the very next year, 1977, all together and played the exact same schedule, we wouldn't go undefeated, because it's just too hard to do. It's so hard to do.
Well, you guys did it, and that's why we're still talking about it 50 years later, and why you wrote a book about it. I guess the last question for me is, where could people that want to read the book after listening to this podcast, where can they find the book? What should they search up, and what should they expect?
Well, the book, you could buy the book on Amazon, and I hope you do, or you could go to the website of the book. The book has a website called, the name of the book is Unforgettable Nights, a player's account. I have to look over because I can't believe I'm the player. A player's account of the legendary Rutgers Final Four season. And you could also go to the website, which is unforgettablenights76.com. And I hope people read it. Those people who lived it in the era, the people who read it, I get incredible feedback from people telling me it brought back memories so dramatically. And it's hard because we're not going to have those memories in the same way after these years. So that's how you're going to do it. And I hope everybody buys it, because I do get paid for it.
All right. Well, look, Jeff, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's always fun to go down memory lane. And we'll see you at the next reunion in 15 minutes, by the way. We'll be down
okay.
there.
I'm waiting for the snow to melt.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant, sponsored by the Heldrich Hotel. Head to nj.com/Rutgers for more Scarlet Knight content.